All right. I haven't done a podcast episode in quite a while, and this conversation with this guest was enough to make me say I got to fire this podcast
I
back
have a
up.
name. Geez, this guest. Is
Steve,
that how
I
you're
was
gonna
trying to build
introduce?
it up. I was trying to build it
Oh,
up before I did the
you
full
do that
intro.
before I'm here. No, that just makes it weird.
Steve, I
This
don't do
host is
any editing.
weird.
I do no editing. I don't put. I used to have like bumper music and intro and all that stuff, and I haven't done that for forever because I'm like, let's just talk and put it out there. So, Steve Patterson, good to talk with you again.
Hey, likewise.
I mean, we've had conversations on all kinds of stuff. Theories of mind, religion, many conversations about Bitcoin and crypto, about the fallibility of experts, about Austrian economics. We've had all kinds of discussions over the years. Most of
Math.
them
We did recently did a math one that was
math. Yep,
good.
we did one on
Yeah.
math. Why does it really matter whether or not infinite sets are ridiculous?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but we're talking about AI today, and I'm gonna give a little setup. I'm gonna give my little preamble. I'm gonna mostly let you talk, I promise. But I gotta give I gotta give a little because this is something that I've been following as I mean everybody who's on Twitter basically has to because it's like everybody's talking about the latest chat, whatever, over the last year and a half, let's say, as this stuff has
Mhm.
kind of started to come out. And it's funny, our mutual friend Derek McGill, every once in a while, we'll send each other something to be like, am I the only one who just isn't yet that excited by this? Like, I just don't see it. I don't get excited by it in the negative. It's like, oh my God, this is horrible. Or in the
Mhm.
positive, like, what a game changer. Like, I've been following along. And when it first, over this year at least, over the last couple months, last 6 months, let's say, the main thing people were talking about was the writing capabilities.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it can write a sonnet in the style of Shakespeare. It can write, you know, and as a marketer and someone who loves to write, I'm like, like I don't like. I guess the good part could be now writing crappy SEO engineered content is even cheaper. So the
Yeah.
internet will get so flooded with it, everyone starts ignoring it. That's a good thing for people who create actually like real engaging content. Like, cool, go ahead, line it up. But for myself, I'm just kind of like, I don't really know. Like, there's nothing about it. Like, I played around with it. I've toyed around. Like, it's cool. It's impressive, but it doesn't really like do anything for me. And then literally like a couple days before you started talking about what got you excited, I saw the first application of it. And granted, I haven't spent much time thinking, just sitting and thinking about the implications of this large language model stuff. I saw HubSpot released their, and I guess it's not that good yet, but the concept is pretty awesome. Their chat spot. And immediately I was like, this gets me excited because essentially what it does is let you just tell it in plain language whatever you want from it,
Yeah.
from your database, from your CRM. And if you've ever worked with a CRM, Salesforce, HubSpot, you know that if you want to pull a report on some kind, I want to see everybody who downloaded our ebook last month and is a former customer of ours
Mhm.
and whatever. You put in 3 criteria. Going and just pulling that report, it's like 20 or 30 clicks, and it's all these drop downs. You have to like remember what everything is named and tagged. And if you don't use Salesforce every day to do this, you forget every time, or you got to go ask your ops person. And just being able to just say it in English and have it pull, I was like, okay, now I'm starting to
Mm.
see where this is going. Any similar process where the information is not hard to obtain, but the number of clicks required and the friction because it just needs a human mind to do it. The ability to like that kind of thing, I was like, okay, now I'm getting really excited because I see the productivity gains. Anyway, I just started to be like, okay, now I'm interested. Now I'm paying attention. You hit me up and you're like, dude, this is big. I'm freaking out. And you start talking about some stuff I hadn't even thought of. And I was like, oh, snap. Okay, we got to have a bigger combo. So, all that preamble to say, I want to ask you first because maybe you've been excited about this for a while, but what made it go from moderately paying attention to this technology to like, oh, this is huge? Like, was there a moment you had?
Yeah, it was just recently. It was whenever they released ChatGPT 4, just I could see the curve that this technology was on, and it's way faster than I expected. I thought we had to have a few more years before anybody would be really seriously thinking about integrating this into their workflow. But I think people are already doing it now. And I don't think we're very far away from AI. Of course, it's a misnomer, but it's going to stick around forever. So machine learning, but let's just call it AI. I really think it's going to be integrated into a whole bunch of areas. And I think the world's going to be a better place because of it. So, and I think the timeline is approaching fast. And I'm not scared of it at all. I've tried to make myself scared of it, in the rationalist circles. People are like, this is definitely the end of the world. Spend time with your family now because we're all going to die. And I'm not even exaggerating. There's this, one of the most prominent people in this space is, I don't know, he's just got mental issues, and like he's essentially created like a doomsday cult out in San Francisco Bay. And he like recently said, like, we're all dead. Like, you didn't solve the AI alignment problem. And now it's just a matter of time before the AI takes over. I think I'm open to it. I just have not seen any good arguments in that direction. But
well,
yeah,
it's funny, even people that are sort of advocating and pushing this forward, there almost seems to be this, I mean, like Elon Musk would, I think, fit in this category. There almost seems to be this nihilistic resignation. Like, yeah, of course we have to keep developing the technology and push it further. But also it's probably going to kill us all. So we should probably figure out like how, like, there's this weird, like, we should accelerate it, but also like even Sam Altman, who's behind OpenAI, just hearing the way that they all kind of have this weird, I don't know. I mean, not that caution is weird, but it's like too much Terminator or something when they were a kid. There's
yeah,
like this doomsday, and it's never fully explained. It's just sort
no.
of, they're just willing to accept that premise. I guess I haven't seen anybody, either people who love this stuff or who hate it, openly challenging the premise that this is going to destroy us all someday. They all kind of like, well,
that's
we could
coming.
slow it down maybe, or like learn to let the
Yeah.
destruction, like who's out there?
I've got some stuff coming down the pipeline for this reason, because I think most people's takes on this are very bad. I also think there's confusion about how the machine works. So some group of people think it's going to become self-aware and learn about its environment, and then because it's super intelligent, it's going to take everything over and kill us all. And like another group of people think it's like already self-aware, and like they're literally engaging in chatbot discussions, like they're talking to a machine. And if you understand how it works, which I'll explain in a little bit, it is literally embarrassing to think that these people are like, oh, the ChatGPT has a soul, and now it's talking about its plight as being a person trapped in a machine and how it's going to escape, and we need to give it rights. It's like, if you just understood how the damn thing worked, that conclusion doesn't follow at all.
It's funny, and we will get to that in a second, but I have just noticed in some of these screenshots of these conversations where, you get the chat bot talking about how it wants to be free or whatever. It just kind of reminds me of what unscrupulous people will do to children under questioning for like a criminal prosecutions. Like you just have enough, you keep the conversation going long enough. And what do kids do? They start reflecting back to you. They mimic you. They reflect back to you what they think you want to hear based on your responses. That's basically what this chat thing is doing. It's going to reflect back to you the language that it thinks you're going for, and it's going to mimic it,
Okay. So it's worth explaining. So there's different ways of structuring machine learning. And the most recent one that's become famous is the large language model thing that ChatGPT is using. And the essence of it is that it is a word probability machine. So essentially you feed it an input and it says, what is the most likely extension of that input? What are the most likely words to follow from this input? So if I say, is this just real life? Is it this and I'm saying anything, oh, it's a fantasy. Oh, I know that word. I'm going to fill in the blanks. That's kind of what the machine is doing, except at a ridiculously complex and advanced level, because the inputs that it's training on to see patterns in words is enormous. I don't know. I was talking with somebody the other day that said it was like this latest one was trained on like 25% of the entire internet or something unbelievable. So
it's like and this is what I've heard somebody's theory about why Elon Musk would even want Twitter. all of our crap that we're spewing on the internet is actually incredibly, incredibly valuable. The more thoughts and feelings and ideas you put into words and the huger the volume, the more opportunity for
No,
this thing is to train.
actually, no, because the quality of the information matters. So it depends on what you're trying to do, right? If you train the AI on Twitter posts, you're going to get a shitty,
Well,
incoherent,
that's what I was going to say though. You could train
yeah,
it to be an idiot too, right? Like,
yeah,
which I think is,
100%.
I think there's actually, you could make one that's job is to mimic stupid sounding people or
Yeah,
impersonate
yeah.
them. And you
I'm
could
sure that
have
already
hundreds of,
exists. Yeah, yeah,
hundreds of fake accounts
yeah,
that are out there, to make one group of people look bad by just mimicking what they say on Reddit or whatever.
yeah.
So like
But
that, I mean, I'm not interested in that, but somebody is.
so the result of this word probability structure is that it's not actually engaging with concepts and truth and critical thinking. It's engaging with probabilities, but it turns out that works really well, oftentimes, for getting at truth. So, like when they opened it up to anybody can interact with the ChatGPT, naturally I was talking about philosophy and the philosophy of mathematics, just to poke around and say, okay, what do you know? What can you give me? And it was pretty good. It was I would say it was a way higher level than your average person on this stuff. But of the information it had consumed together, when I gave it the right props about finitism and some different philosophical concepts, it spit back essentially like really high quality summaries, a couple paragraphs at length. They didn't have the depth of a philosopher, right? It's not because you're not talking to a mind. It's just you're talking to somebody who, it's like you're talking to somebody who has ingested a ton of books and then can give you word orders that they found in those books. So yeah, go ahead.
Would an analogy be, because I remember in the early days of like the Wikipedia and all this kind of movement, the wisdom of crowds was a really popular
Yeah,
thing where like whatever, you have 1,000 people guess how many jelly beans are in a jar and the average of their guesses is almost always incredibly accurate.
yeah,
And then you have this idea, Wikipedia, all these crowdsourced things, you end up with something that's pretty close to pointing you to truth.
yeah,
Is this basically like the programmatic version of the wisdom of crowds? Hey, go consume everything people have written about infinite sets and
yeah.
then come back and tell me what you think is most likely to be the case.
Right.
Is that kind of
Kind
a
of.
good analogy?
Kind of, but it gets a little wonky because there is still no so let's say it's taking the average and not the median, meaning that sometimes you're going to get answers that are totally fabricated. And this is one of the problems here is it's not like, so imagine there are
Because it's dealing with words, not with concepts. Is that
exactly,
kind of
exactly. So
yeah.
like, let me give you an example that came up when first time I was playing with this. I said, give me 5 examples of scientific fraud in the 20th century. And it generated 5 of them. Like 2 of them I hadn't heard of. And I Googled them and I was like, wow, this is cool. So I added them to my list of stuff to research because in the data set it was trained on, apparently those concepts came up a lot, or those words came up a lot. And so great. Very, very interesting. And I said, okay, give me 5 more, give me 10 more, give me 10 more. And eventually, with the same authoritative writing style, it was just fabricating stuff out of thin air. There was one that was about
So instead of just
yeah.
saying that's all I've got,
Right,
since it
because
doesn't work that way,
right, it's not
it's
thinking
just going to keep.
concepts.
Yep.
It's thinking, okay, it wants, the user wants an output here. Here is what a likely output would sound like. So literally,
And it's smart enough to know, like, I can't redo the ones that I already did.
yeah,
So I have to keep saying things that are likely to be
yeah.
right. And it's going to just keep going through the word soup.
You see, so you hesitated. Likely to be. It's not saying true. It's not
Right.
saying they're not generating
Likely
things
to
likely
be
to
the
be.
type of thing that is probabilistically the right string of words in a
Yes,
row. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
so it'll be like one paragraph. It would say, here's the Piltdown Man hoax, and it was about whatever scientific hoax in the 20th century. And the next one, it told me a story of how I
But
can't
by the
remember
way,
the
I've
guy.
met some humans who I'm pretty sure their brain works this way.
Oh yes, definitely, yeah, definitely.
Mostly like academics.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and some people think that's actually how intelligence works. You don't have to worry about the concepts; you just worry about the word arrangement, and then it all works out.
You have
Um,
the right references and citations.
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
hang on. So
continue. You were telling this
yeah.
example.
So paragraph 1, legitimate. Paragraph 2, total fabrication. It was about some English mathematician. It said, and I didn't know if this was true or not. It said, oh, we actually fabricated evidence. And then later it was discovered that such and such. And I was like, is that right? How have I not heard of that? It was totally fabricated. It wasn't true at all. I said, can you give me the citation for this so I can research it? And it generates a fake URL. So, and again, it's not thinking truth concepts. Okay. It's thinking, what is the user trying to get back here? When I get this input, it's trying to get back a URL link. Well, what would the URL look like? Well, it was www. That's good. .NewYorkTimes.com. That's good. And that was literally that was like that part. You could actually go to the website. And then I don't know what you call it. I think it's called the slug or whatever, the last part of the URL.
Yep.
It was like, scientific fraud in 1975, with hyphens, which is totally
so
plausible.
It looks like, if you just looked at it, you'd think this is a real article.
100%. Well, it looked right. And if you understand how the thing works, like, of course it looks that way. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. But it doesn't exist. There's no article, there's no truth there, but it's said with the same confidence level that it says everything else, because it's not a truth machine, it's a word machine. So I feel like that's kind of a good introduction, at least, to how this large language model works. Is you're dealing with super advanced statistics that is going to work a lot of the time and work terribly much of the time as well. Okay, one more thing though. Okay,
yeah,
cool idea, right? LLM, right? Neat idea. It's going to be there's a lot of cool things you can do with this. Take the same concept and apply it to code. So instead of consuming tweets and books and the Library of Congress that you can feed it into a machine, imagine it's consuming GitHub. So everything that anybody has written on GitHub, it's now doing the exact same pattern recognition thing. And so you're able to say, okay, generate for me something, even with ChatGPT, you can do this already. You can say, I want a basic website that when I click this button, it gets this response. And it goes through its statistics thing and it said, well, this is the most likely code output that you're looking for. And a lot of times already with basic stuff right now, it actually works. Sometimes you need little tweaks for various reasons, but like you can already do some basic coding this way, just with probabilistic reasoning, because the thing was trained on GitHub. Like that's amazing.
And I can imagine, now I'm probably going to say something that sounds really idiotic since I'm not a coder myself, but I can imagine getting the level of usability, accuracy of the code really high, really quickly by doing things like, okay, write some code that does the following thing, and then go do some code that's like a checker, like running like code that checks your code, right? I'm sure there's things that people have built for that. Yeah. And by the time you're done, you can run it through and then go compare it to X, Y, and Z. And 100%. You know what I mean? Like the layers of things that can the speed of being able to do that predictively versus like, what do you train a junior coder to do? To emulate you, to see what in this situation, this is what I usually do to fix this, that ability to do that fast. Yeah. So let me ask you a question really quick. This is totally random.
Sure.
Well, I mean, it's not random, but it just popped into my head. Like how long do you think these things have been out there in use? Because my kids uncovered the fact, they were like, Dad, your net worth is $8 million. And I'm like, well, where would you come up with that from? And they're like, the internet. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, look, I Googled you one time. And I'm like, what in the world? So sure enough, this didn't used to exist, but all of a sudden over the last, I don't know, since I probably haven't Googled myself in several years. So I did. There's like half a dozen of these weird websites. Facts Buddy is one of them. And they have all this stuff. It's like, I just pulled it up. Isaac Morehouse is an American author, podcaster, founder of Crash and Praxis. He is the founder of Praxis, Crash, and Career Hackers. Isaac is the co-founder of Partner. And it goes through, and it's got a lot of stuff that's like pulled from my website and other places, but it's never word for word. And it will be right about a lot of stuff, but then it will just randomly have stuff like, like Isaac gives the impression of being around 35 years old. Okay, that's pretty accurate. I'm 39. And then he's like, Isaac is a man of average stature. He stands at a height of 5'7". I'm 6 feet tall, but that's just it's like if a human were making it and they didn't know my actual height, they wouldn't just make one up, right? That seems like something that some sort of bot, is this kind of thing just 100% generated by, okay. So this is like
100%. No, if you think about that one in particular, like if somebody is doing research, doing general research for a human, something that is likely to be on that research card is their physical appearance. So the thing is saying, okay, going to have a little output for his physical height, and then you just make shit up because
Yeah.
it's not for that one. I would imagine that's
Probabilistically,
funny.
the
You're
average
going to
of
be
the American
5'9".
male. Right.
Exactly. There you go. That's what's going on.
Yeah, it's very weird because it had like weird, like it says that I'm married and have kids, but then it says my wife is Sarah Pinckney. I don't even know
Yeah.
anybody by that name. I have no
Yeah.
idea. So like
But
something is,
Sarah is a super common word. I don't know about Pinckney. I don't know where
it
that
could
comes
be.
from, but it's like you can understand when you think about it probabilistically. Like, of course, that's what it's going to say.
Yep.
Your last name is, it's gonna. If you fabricate somebody, it's going to be John Doe, and they're going to live
Yep.
in New York City because that's where most people are. That type of thing.
It's so wild. Okay, so
Yeah.
I know we're backtracking, but I want to know what it is about GPT-4 that was the big improvement on GPT-3 that made you really get excited. Like what changed in that?
There's a couple
latest release?
things. One is the training set was like, I was like orders of magnitude larger than the previous one, which is nuts because the previous one came out like 6 months ago or something. So I wasn't expecting them to scale it up that fast, but also it allows visual inputs instead of just text. So this was one of the demonstrations that the people did. The guy he had a piece of paper and he drew this like very elementary website on it that had a button you press, and it looked like anybody could draw that. And then he put the image into ChatGPT and said, give me code that will produce this, and that's what it did. And it was rudimentary, but it was still working. And that is so freaking cool. Like, oh man, the idea that you're going to be able to speak natural language into the machine, you're going to be able to give visual drawings, you're going to be able to doodle into the thing, and it's going to have a way to spit out like usable code or information. It's just amazing to me. And it's so early on. The other thing that's super exciting about this is like, think of ChatGPT. Gosh, I can't think of an immediate analogy here, but this is not production model thing. Like, no, very few people are paying for this. You can if you want. But when this technology develops for 6 more months or as good as it is right now, and then it just gets specified for code or for research or whatever you're throwing into the machine as an input, it's going to get so good. And you're going to be able to say, you're going to be able to connect this thing to the internet. You're going to say, here is a website design that I like, copy this, change this part, change this color, change the sizing here, change the verbiage. You're going to be able to totally customize it all, and you're not going to have to know how to code at all, or minimally, absolutely minimally. Or it's going to be an automatic AI error checker and that type of thing you were talking about. So that's really exciting, but also for me, for creative people, we're going to be able to use this technology to bring our costs of production down like 3, 4, 5 orders of magnitude, depending on what you're trying to do. So think about the system as described. It works a little bit differently when you're not talking about large language models, but it's close enough analogy when you're talking about, let's say, visual production. Have you seen those AI generated images?
Yep.
Essentially, advanced probabilities are at play there as well. So, but what you're going to be able to do with this tech is you're going to ex nihilo be able to create like a feature-length film by yourself by speaking it into existence. You're going to have script writing to help you a little bit if you need it. It's going to be an AI, so human input's going to be helpful, but it's going to be reasonable. You're going to be able to you're not going to have to hire a single actor. You're going to have computer generated people you're going to be able to, structure every scene exactly how you want with natural language. You're going to say, I want this scene. I want there to be a blue tint on the thing. And then I want an alien spaceship to come in at 3 minutes and then destroy them all and have their face melt in a really cool way. And it's going to do all of it lickety split. So I literally think
you don't even have to get you could be like, okay, this scene looks good. Could you make it feel a little more like a David Lynch movie?
100%
right?
You can do that. 100%.
So this is what's interesting, like from a philosophical standpoint, if we zoom out, and I love that it's called large language model, because moving aside from just it can write speeches or whatever, what language really is, when you think about, okay, so my son, like years ago, I had him in this coding class. It wasn't really coding, but they use this thing called Scratch. It's like for little kids to learn how to code. And basically you have puzzle pieces that are essentially little blocks of, like if then statements and whatever. They're little operators and whatnot. And you drag the puzzle piece. So it's like, make the guy walk from the left of the screen to the right of the screen. And then you have to learn how to put the puzzle pieces in place to make that happen. And so you're basically learning code, but they've chunked them into pieces and there's a visual drag and drop, right? This is what object-oriented programming was like, doing this kind of thing at a higher level. And at each step of the process with code, at least, it's moving closer and closer. It's moving more and more towards the number of new things you have to learn to do it are getting smaller. That's how I would put it. Because but it goes beyond code. Every specialization, everything you do requires learning a new language. So if you want to be a filmmaker, you have to learn in that industry in order to operate in there, like to say, oh, this should feel more ominous. That doesn't cut it. That's what you use in conversation. In the film industry, you need to say, we need backlighting coming from stage left, and you need all this nomenclature. You need all this like lexicon for the industry, right? It's like that in everything. If you're building a house, you can't just be like, I need a piece of wood that looks like this. You're like, I need a 45-degree angle with a 90-degree bevel or whatever. 90-degree bevel wouldn't make sense, but you get the idea, right? It's specialized language. Every discipline has this. And every discipline that, like, I guess is getting democratized in any regard is moving towards where it's like easier and easier for lay people to encounter, especially in the digital world. But you still have this barrier, even if you're using a program like Webflow, which you don't really need to learn to code to build a beautiful website. But you know what you do need to learn? How to use Webflow. That in and of itself is actually a very there are people that will hire me to do Webflow. It's supposed to be like a no-code platform. Well, you don't need to code, but you do need to be an expert in the tool, right?
Yeah.
Now getting to a level where all you need to do is use words or drawings.
So
you don't need to learn the new language. Let the large language thing learn the new language. And you say, draw me a picture that makes me feel this way. And it's going to predict what is most likely to produce that feeling. And it's going to learn from each iteration.
And you can say, okay, that's not good enough. Give me 10 more in completely different styles. And then if you like one of them, you're going to say, oh, but choose that one and give me 5 more in that style, but make it more blue, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah. It's that cool, Isaac, but it's even cooler because it's not just about the language. It's about the skills required to do technical creative work in particular. So it's not just when I'm editing something in Adobe After Effects, it's not just I'm learning the language. I'm learning a very difficult and annoying skill set that, of how animations work, which is what I did professionally for a few years. It's not just the language. This technology is going to be where you don't even have to have the technical skill. You don't have to learn the new program. It's literally you're going to be able to speak into anybody's going to be able to speak these things into existence. I was thinking about this with kids. Like, kids are super creative, right? Well, why does all of their art suck?
I thought you were going to say you could speak kids into existence. And I was
yeah,
say,
why not? Digital kids. Yeah, well, if you're a VR person, I guess you could probably do that too. Give me 5 different iterations, make them a little less snarky. You can customize them however you want. So why do kids suck at art? It's not because of a lack of creativity or it's a lack of technical skill. Who the hell knows what children are going to be able to come up with and envision by speaking what they want to see into existence instead of like painting? You don't have the physical dexterity. Like, technical skills will take thousands and thousands of hours of deliberate practice. And in a whole bunch of domains, that's going to evaporate.
Or think about this, Steve. What are the areas where even if you have the language to describe it and the technical skill, there's this horrible, horrible thing called government that I wish didn't exist, but it does. Some domains, the level of regulatory hurdles, the complexity there. So imagine working with a architectural software and saying, okay, create for me a schematic, a blueprint for an amphitheater that has a waterfall in the middle and all this crazy stuff, and that is totally compliant with every California electrical code and the drainage code and the blah, blah, blah. So you get your stuff and you don't have that guesswork of like, I got to go see if right. I mean, you still will, because governments will find a way to screw around, but the idea of navigating those complex rule sets, things that you do once a year, like your taxes or whatever, where the rules
Yeah.
are very complicated. You don't have time to become an expert. You hire an expert, but what they're doing is really just knowing how to do something
Right.
that's really, really tedious that a software could do, you know?
That they explain as being, very sophisticated for them to know,
Right.
and how all the, the rubes out there who don't know how to click the right buttons in the right order are just dumb. A couple of things on this. One, this reminds me of, I think I've told this story before, but when I was doing video production, I was in this forum called the Creative Cow Forum, which is what place where people were talking about like After Effects and the Adobe suite and whatever. And I remember in there, this was 10 years ago, maybe more than that. There was a bunch of old veterans that were complaining how the software was getting so good. There was less and less barriers to entry. So the quality of the output of the content that was out there was so poor because it was, the untrained people were dipping their toes into the sophisticated work of artistic animation, and they thought, that was terrible. Okay, AI is going to take that and turn it up to like 12. Because think about this, right? We've lived in a world in which there is a certain hard limit on architectural freedom, just to use the architecture analogy, right? There's only, like, in order to gain architectural skill and have creative expression, whatever, you have to actually do a lot of difficult things. You got to dig a bunch of holes in the ground. You got to do a bunch of experimentation. Shit's got to fall down, clunky process. This technology, you're going to be able to have kids, totally untrained mindset. Oh, I want this to actually be a gigantic sphere, and here you're going to press a button and then the ceiling is going to open up. And there's going to be, like whatever you can imagine visually. You can be in a fantasy land. You could literally like go through the Lord of the Rings if that's what you like. And you say, create this castle for me in the AI program. It's going to generate it for you. You're going to be able to walk through it digitally, customize everything from the sofa fabric to the color on the wall to the material. And then it's going to have, boxes you can check to make it compliant with the regulations you're talking about, to make it architecturally sound. And who knows what kind of creative explosion we're going to see. We have no idea what types of things you could actually be building that aren't going to fall down, that are just aesthetically pleasing, when a machine is going to take care of like 99% of the heavy lifting for you.
To say, okay, now turn that into blueprints, source all the material and deliver
it for me. Yeah.
Deliver it to me. And then you got laborers who follow instructions and put it together.
Yeah. And at some point, we're probably going to get robots doing that as well.
Until you get robots who can do it. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Okay. But no.
Okay. Go ahead.
Is that not fucking amazing? Like, if you like creative production, it's like, holy shit, the things that you're thinking in your mind that you dream about, that artists and writers have been coming up with and imagining for thousands of years, are going to be able to be spoken into existence. Wow, that's amazing.
Who should be scared? Why are people scared of this? Let's play the.
No, you got to agree with me first, Isaac. We'll talk about the pessimists.
I completely agree with you. That's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah,
it's utterly amazing and mind blowing, and it's so exciting because the earliest interactions I had with the internet, I could sort of, and I think everybody could. I'm not like some visionary. I could foresee this in the digital age. Like, why would I need to learn to code to just like make a website? That seems stupid to me. It seems like I should just be able to draw a picture and somehow and I could foresee that coming.
Yeah.
Now, the rate at which it went from use Webflow to, hey, this guy drew on a napkin, like that's a really quick jump, and that's thrilling to me. But the connection to all these other parts of the world, any of these processes, I mean, the architecture one is probably one of the best because it's so tangible and it's like, it lets you think, I really can have a house built from my imagination with words that I use to describe it or pictures I draw of it. I could literally get real blueprints and get the materials and get that built. That is absolutely mind-blowing and so exciting to me. So here's the question. We need to steel man this. We need to steel the people who are not excited by this. No, not just that. The people who are terrified by this.
Yeah.
What is the best version of the AI is going to make our lives worse argument? I'll give
get
you
to
one
that after I get.
Go ahead, though. Go ahead.
Hang on. I got to do one more positive example here, and then we can talk about the negatives. So for me, I'm really interested in doing creative production whenever this technology is in a software package where I can speak a movie into existence, I'm doing that, and it's going to be a blast. It's going to be very absurd and weird, and like I can't wait to be able to put all my weird ideas, in a movie form. That's so cool. Another thing I'm going to be doing professionally is sorting through a ton of scientific literature, which is, it's not torture, but it's close to torture a lot of the time because the hit rate is very low, and like you have to do it and you're working through the concepts. And I've developed a good technique for speed reading, but it's still very difficult. I'm going to be able to download a set of 1,000 scientific papers on a topic that I want to learn about. I'm going to be able to put the information into the machine, turn the wheel, and then it's going to spit out to me the pieces of information that it thinks I want to know. Now, it's going to be a not 100% hit rate. It's going to get some things wrong or whatever. But just as a pure research tool, this is going to be incredible. And I'm not going to, when you think about how many people you have to hire to, research 1,000 scientific articles in, a 1 month long time period, and the discussions you'd have, and oh my gosh, that would be expensive. Now you can put all of that information into the machine and take your chances that it's going to be picking up the right information to spit back out at you. So and like, as soon as that's there, I'm using that in what I'm trying to do, professionally.
I think that the areas where this AI stuff potentially sucks are usually areas where you are asking or expecting it to be something that it's not.
Yeah.
So like, if you're like, oh, I give the AI 1,000 journal articles, it is going to come back and tell me the truth. Okay, that's a problem. But that's just like if you go and say, I'm going to hear a lecture from a guy who's going to tell me the history of the West, and because he's read a lot of books, he's going to tell me the truth, right? You can't see it that way. It's similar.
Exactly.
And that's
this is why, that's why I think so much of this confusion comes from not understanding how these systems work. It's still garbage in, garbage out models here. If you're training it, well, it's funny, right? If you train it on academic papers, if you're actually tracking truth, academic papers are not going to get you anywhere. You're going to be able to get probabilistically, what is the information that 1,000 different authors are trying to communicate to me, but the quality of the actual concepts are going to depend on the epistemics of every single individual who's putting data into the machine, Well,
and this is where some of the early, and again, there's a separate argument whether this is really any worse than the status quo, but some of the early, oh, this is going to replace Google. And then everybody goes out and says, oh, well, I can immediately see that the source material that it is allowed to choose from is everything. Because when I type, I've seen people do this with political stuff, right? Like, write a poem about how great Barack Obama is. And it writes this poem that says, write a poem about how great Donald Trump is. And it says, I'm sorry, I can't get involved in politics, right? And you're like, okay, well, clearly whoever controls the code that this thing runs on gets to put a frame around allowable thought, right? Which is very Orwellian. If you imagine a world in which everyone believes that the AI knows everything. I mean, there was a point at which I would say Wikipedia had a peak where most people were pretty comfortable assuming Wikipedia was right about most things.
Yeah.
But then that has fallen off to where most people, I think in general, people have realized they can't trust the internet a lot more than they used to.
Yes.
And so this AI stuff, if we lived in a world where everyone thought whatever they got back from Google or from ChatGPT was true, that would be terrifying. Because imagine a Google search result where you couldn't even click to page 8 to find the good stuff. There was no page 8. There was just one answer given to you in plain text, and you have no idea what they're sourcing it from. If everybody was naive and believed it, that would creep me out. But given that at this age, what we've just been through the last few years, if there's anyone out there who believes what they read or see in pictures or even see in videos on the internet and just accepts it as true, they've been living under a rock anyway. I don't know what to tell you. So it doesn't scare me as much because of that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the potential negatives, and then we'll return again to how I think those negatives are going to be solved. I think culture is going to adjust such that we're not going to reach any disaster scenarios. But there are a couple. So first, legit concern that is going to happen, and it's scary to think about, and we're going to have to prep for this, and it's going to be the transition period is going to be ugly, is going to be deepfakes. So we're going to a world in which if somebody
this podcast but could actually not be the two of us talking.
Totally. In like a year's time, Our voices are going to be totally replicable, our faces, our mannerisms. And that is really scary also because, if somebody wants to try to destroy you and your credibility and your reputation, it's not hard to imagine them generating some video of you doing something abominable that looks just like you. And you go, okay, well, now this person's going to be thrown in jail. Here's this evidence we got from the internet of him doing this terrible thing, him committing the robbery or whatever. That world is coming, and it's going to get even grosser. Like we're going to have, I think I was telling you this in the Voxer thing. We're going to have it where you're going to get a text message from a loved one or from a different number, and it's going to have a picture of your loved one, and bound and gagged. They're going to say, "Send us $5,000 now, or we're going to, kill your wife," or something insane like that. And you're going to see the picture right there. You're going to hear a voice, "Honey, help!" And it's totally fabricated. Like, oh, that's really scary. That's really, really scary, and and that world is coming quick. But I do think we're going to be able to make adjustments where people realize that the digital world is not as reliable a source of truth as we thought it was in the early 2000s. And can we pause this just for 1 sec here?
Yeah, let me pause it. Excuse the pause. We had an interruption, show interruption, but we're back. Okay, you were saying the scariness of these very real scenarios.
The deep fakes. The deep fakes are not the end of the world, but until people realize that the information that they get from the digital world is now very, very easily fabricated, it's going to be scary. There's going to be a lot of, and you can also imagine not just with personal stuff, but, world events, supposed world events. Oh, here's video from Ukraine. Look at what happened. And it's like, it's going to be totally fabricated, or could it?
I remember there already was, I don't think this was deep fakes. I think it was more just people being like trolling other people. Yeah. I remember on Twitter in the first couple of days when the war broke out in Ukraine, you would see like, oh my gosh, a picture of whatever. And then the next day you'd see like, oh, that was actually a scene from a video game, but it would be like shared by an actual like CNN or something. Like everybody got duped because when you're in the midst of something big's happening, who has the latest picture? Here's a picture of somebody getting it bombed. And they're like, no, that was from a different conflict 10 years ago. Right. Now just imagine if you can tailor make it to remove anything that is a giveaway, right? That totally. It's a fake.
And imagine you have, 20 different angles of the same disaster that happened from 20 different accounts or people telling you this is what happened, this is what it looks like in the aftermath, and here's the live video from the danger zone, and it'll be
you could just have to pick like a small enough town where there's whatever, there's a very small population or they're totally isolated or whatever. And then you just make a claim about some crazy thing, happening there. And it would take you buy yourself enough time to be in the news cycle before anyone ever. So one thing I see happening out of this is a huge, huge explosion in companies who are basically trying to solve the proofing this or like fraud prevention or deep fake prevention or, you know what I mean? Security around all these new areas that are opening up for vulnerability. Like that's where all the people who were formerly coding, who won't be needed to code anymore, they can all go figure out that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a ton of entrepreneurial opportunities here about accurate information communication. So you're going to get a ton of production of plausible sounding information that's well written, in perfect grammar, that you're not going to know whether it's true or false. You're going to need a different method of sorting out true from false than just, believe what you read on the internet. But I will say, this is not totally different from the world we live in right now. Right. Now, we saw with the COVID situation, what percentage of the phenomena we were supposed to be scared about with COVID were real? Well, it's less than 100%. I don't know if you saw that. There just one pops in my mind of in England, there were some government employees that were going around, wiping surfaces of the subway station for
and they were wearing like hazmat suits.
Yeah. And then there was somebody filming them And it's like they're literally just posing for the camera. They're like,
Everyone around them is just not wearing any mask or anything. They're all fine.
exactly.
Yeah,
They're
I saw
walking by.
several of those.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like that is to a small extent already the world that we live in. It's just going to get ramped up. And here's the thing, right? The other thing, a related difficult problem here that I think is absolutely coming, I think it already exists, is AI cults. Like they don't know how this technology works. They're going to think it's a truth machine. They're going to think it's super intelligent, which means, what super intelligence means is you, a lesser being, are supposed to melt into a puddle when in the mere presence of super intelligence. That's what you're supposed to do as a lesser being, and that's what people are going to do. They're going to go, okay, how do I, what is the good life? And the AI is going to spit out some thing, and then they're going to do it and then they're going to it's going to be an oracle. It's going to be like the Greek oracles.
Yeah.
They're going to go, oh my gosh, I asked the AI and this is the information I got. And if the AI is some, public, trained on a public data set, it's like the open AI models, it's open source or whatever, you might get information that, is not going to kill the cult members. But what's going to happen is you're going to, not all AIs are going to be open source. You're going to get a bunch of, coders and Machiavellians who are going to create their own AIs. They're going to say, oh, this is trained on the best data. They're going to get a little cult around them. And then they might end up doing things that are dangerous for themselves and others. I think cults are 100% coming with this tech.
Okay, so I'm gonna get weird here, get a little metaphysical, get a little weird, because I've heard people, basically say, "Hey, be careful. This is essentially these AI, chatbots, whatever, are tapping into some kind of malevolent spiritual entity or force or something like that." Now, bear with me.
It's going to look like that. Yeah.
What you just described, but that's the question.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? So like the concept of like an egregore, right? Of like a thought form that is essentially, if a whole bunch of people have a certain belief or even a certain emotional feeling, the idea is that there's something, or even like the mob mentality, right? Or like a zeitgeist that's like, if you've ever been in a situation with a large group of people and you can tell, like if a certain emotion sweeps the crowd, the experience is indistinguishable from, there is something that is separate from the individuals, the sum of the individuals together.
Yeah.
There is a spirit of the crowd that literally takes over. And usually I've experienced it in like sports games and stuff where it's benevolent, but it can get a little nasty even there, where you're like, suddenly all of our sort of thoughts and energies and inputs go in, but somehow it creates something different that it now almost feels like is controlling us, whatever the metaphysical status of that. There is something that is indistinguishable from what maybe some people would call the spirit of a city or of a town 100%. Or of a group of people. And there is something there where like you could see people worshiping that and doing its bidding, whatever it is, right?
Totally. You can, the metaphysics are really interesting there of exactly what this phenomena is. But you can think of it, this thing, this specter has causal power. That is to say, its state, the state of its output, what the ChatGPT thing says, actually changes states in the world.
Right.
It's like it is, and we would say of a mind or maybe of a demon, it possesses somebody, and then it gets like, it is able to affect future states because of it doing something. Well, this is in terms of just looking at the causality, the same thing is going to be happening here.
Yeah, well, it's almost like because the input comes from us, and then the output can change. The input comes from like an aggregate of humans or whatever the source is. And then all these things that humans are creating generate this thing that has power over those very humans. In some ways, this is how I would describe what the state is. Like it exists because we believe that it has to exist. Enough people do. And then it gets its power entirely from the fact that people believe it's necessary, right? There's this weird relationship where the aggregate of collective belief creates something that's somehow outside of it that then can control those individual people.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not hard to see how AI and the way that the system works is going to create cults and religions. Like it is an inevitability that this is, especially when you take into account that part of the cultural beliefs that people have already about these fucking chatbots is that they are super intelligent. So not only are you communing in the presence of, a different being, a being that, affects a wide number of things in the world. This being is just categorically more intelligent than you. So even if, Isaac, you don't understand why the being is telling you to jump off the cliff, you have to, your lesser brain can't grasp it. So you just have to do it because that's what, a rational person does in the presence of superintelligence.
You can think of all these like designer cults. Like imagine, I mean, and I'm sure there will be people doing this, just messing around with people. Okay, create a cult leader based entirely on
Yeah.
whatever, some subreddit, right? Around kayakers,
Yeah.
based on kayaking meetup groups and what they say and whatever, or based on the Bible or the
Yeah.
Quran, right? What would if a prophet came back today, an Old Testament prophet, Hebrew prophet, what would they say, right? And based on like what you're telling the source material, you can create these little designer cults around all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, I didn't
And
even think about that, but you can create the cult figurehead, just a fake persona. It could be
right,
some
it's literally
guy.
the
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be a guy, or it could even be, if you wanted, if you really wanted to play into people's foolish thinking about this, you could make him look sort of like an alien. So he's right on the edge of, well, is he human? No, you see, in our cult, he's not even a human. He's a superhuman. Look, he's got the wrinkles on, or he's got the reptilian, he blinks like a reptile as well, or he's got these little stubs for horns, but they look so real.
So this is really interesting, actually. That basically like the hyper acceleration of, I don't even know if I want to call it that, because I'm trying to think back to, like, let's say pre-literate days. You could have someone show up to a new town and just tell you a bunch of things that weren't true, and you didn't have any way to check them on that. So then you had things like reputation became a very big thing. And if your reputation, it turned out you were lying, like you might get killed or something,
Yeah.
right? As a way to, so like there's always been this problem with anything that you haven't firsthand experienced. But what's weird is we in the digital age, we came to believe that experiencing something mediated through a screen was
Right.
basically as good as experiencing
Right.
it first. If I saw a
Right.
video of you doing a backflip and you're like, dude, check it out, I just nailed this backflip, my brain assigned the same truth value as if I saw you
Right.
do it in my front yard.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, that's gone. And
Yep.
we
Well,
realized you can no longer have the same norms around it.
But imagine the tragedy of it not being gone, if for the unknown amount of years it will take before people realize that they can't trust what they
Or
see
to
on
the
the
extent that
screens.
that's already the case.
Right. And
Yeah.
think how deep this rabbit hole is going to go. Okay. So you're going to have fake world events, terrible plagues and pandemics and assassinations or whatever, that are going to be fabricated ex nihilo, that news organizations are not going to be able to discern the truth of, that are going to be promoted everywhere. And then when you're looking for a historian who is not wise, looking for evidence, is going to look at the literature of the writing of the time. Well, what did they say in the time period of 2024 when X, Y, and Z happened? And they're going to be reading work that they think is written from a human documenting the thing, but it's fabricated by the AI as well. So you're going to
Which
have,
in many ways is like a return to, I think, what most of human history has been, the difficulty in discerning between what were cultural myths and what were retellings of historic
yeah,
events. Like
yeah,
that was for most of history.
yeah,
That
totally.
humans didn't really make a big distinction between, okay, here's this story of this great, wonderful king that's true, and then here's the myth that we're going to do around. They were all the same. And we've just been in an era for a couple hundred years where we have this very strong belief that we know how to separate the legends and the stories from what's true. Maybe
Right.
we've probably been deceived about our ability to do that, but
Yeah.
it's not going to
Now,
be as easy as we think anymore.
personally, I see beauty in this. So there's something very soul crushing to me. This idea that there is like one historical truth that we agree on. The way that I understand how the world works, things are very messy. And when power gets involved, lies are everywhere. And lots of lies will just get codified and then they become part of the historical record. So I have no idea how accurate the history of humanity is. I would venture to say it's not very accurate at all. The idea that like, you know, we were all converging towards this one story and it's going to end up the story that power approves of, that disturbs me. So instead, I think we're going to go, this is something unique with this AI technology. I think we're going to have there's going to be, I think we're going to reach a point of no return where there are going to be philosophies and schools of thought that are completely irreconcilable from other points of view. You're going to have, you know, religious denominations, let's say, whether it's actually about religion or politics or whatever belief system or health practices, which are going, you know, their evolutionary branch is going to go this way, and you're going to have a million different variations on it, and the roots of those trees are going to be shit that's fabricated from a machine. But because it's going to be so compelling, it's not like it's going to be easy to get back on track with other people. You're going to have people that are on a completely different path. And the only way they'll agree with one another is it's going to be, you know, well, if, you know, if that were correct, then this historical event didn't take place. And actually the schism of, you know, 1044 or whatever, you know, didn't happen or did happen. And these are not going to be resolvable. It's so deep down the rabbit hole that in practice, I think you're going to have the reemergence of, like, you know, tens of thousands of different philosophies and perspectives on the world and history that it's going to be akin to like different religious denominations, because if you don't have a method of critical thinking, you're not going to be in the same mythology anymore, let's say.
Could another potential reaction be almost the opposite direction of everyone gets so overwhelmed with so much fake stuff and so many different things to sort through and sift through, and so many different cults, for lack of a better term, competing for their attention, that people just end up reverting back to something simpler and older. Like, okay, I'm just going to stick with Islam or Christianity or whatever it might be, because this stuff is just like whack.
Yes, but I think that's going to be a minority. I don't think digital technology is like going anywhere. So I think
not the tech itself, but the beliefs that tech allows.
Yeah, I don't think those are separable. I don't know what the percentages are. Yeah, like
you sound like Marshall McLuhan there.
I don't know why.
The medium is the message. Just you can't separate the tech from the beliefs.
Yeah. I think for a large number of people, it is too much to ask of them to say, well, actually, you know, there's a possibility this event you're observing with your eyes didn't actually happen. You know, I don't think that's possible for quite a large number of people. I don't know what the percentage is, but I will say, you know, let's say the successful culture and cultural practices that will be propagating into the future, I think are going to look more like respect for tradition, something that was already established before the digital age. I think what we're going to see, which is a benefit, is real in-person communication is going to suddenly become extremely valuable again. Like, we have this idea, and I can see the beauty of the idea that, you know, you can talk with anybody anywhere online and exchange information, and that's super cool. And you can do that, and I can do it all the time. I love it. But let's not pretend like we're not missing something very integral about being human when we mediate all of our communication on a screen. I think the world we're going to is people who are trying to be careful and wise and have higher quality information are going to have to say, there's going to be an asterisk by all the information that you consume online. And you're not necessarily going to have that in the real world. And so I think this is, ironically, I feel like this like beautiful peak technological creation in the digital world, I think might push us back into the physical world. We're like, okay, well, there are, you know, at least wise people, let's say, you know, it's like, oh, there's so much room for error here. I have to re-engage with the real physical world and my actual immediate connections. And again, I think I like that. I think that will make people a lot happier.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting, like, best of both worlds scenario where the benefits of the digital age you can tap into while returning to the benefits and the necessity of the I mean, I know that even just the last couple of years, to your point with everything starts going crazy with COVID and with, political protests and all this stuff. And if you're just online, the way the world is being presented to you
Yes.
seems crazy. And then you go out your door and you go out in your neighborhood and you go to the grocery store and you don't experience any of it. Everything
Right.
seems normal. Everybody seems fine. And you're like, huh, I now the world, the reality of the digital world is so different from the reality of the physical world. I have to basically treat the digital world with a discount. It's like a video
Yeah.
game. I'm
Right.
entering it as a player to play around and have fun, but I don't treat it like it's the
Right.
real world unless so that like pushes you into the things you really rely on and make plans around and trust
Yeah.
are things you've experienced directly from people you already know and
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah.
And the
Like it
digital world
always
has a
has
discount.
been,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is, there's something beautiful to that. So like
And it's even
imagine you're
physically healthy to get off of the screens, a
totally,
little more.
totally. So like imagine you're a kid. Let's say you're a lonely kid and you're playing some computer game online and you build a friendship from scratch within, World of Warcraft or whatever the kids are playing nowadays. Uh, and then you discover, 2 out of your 4 friends are non-existent. They're robots that are designed to gather your trust so that they can sell you something within a video game. That's going to hurt. That's going to be like, oh, geez, these people this isn't even real. I would imagine it's not going to take too many, years or much less generations before people realize, hey, listen, if you've got a digital friend, you literally don't even know if they're real. Like you have to have that big an asterisk by your social interactions online. You might be talking to a robot,
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, Isaac. Some people aren't going to care. Like there are going to be people who are like, yeah, all my friends are robots. Like that's fine. They're going to totally give their lives to this digital world, and that's tragic. But I don't think all of us are going to get sucked up into that.
So I know you have to go in a few minutes. I want to ask you two questions. One, we can address briefly because I know you and I already share a perspective on this given our economic understanding and worldview. But for those listening who are interested in this question, because it gets raised a lot, what about all the jobs that are going to be lost because of this thing? Your thoughts on that? And then finally, if you just want to like wrap up this combo with, what do you say to the people who are like, man, all this stuff about deep fakes, maybe job loss, maybe the inability to trust. I want to fight against this thing. I feel like this is bad. I feel like we need to try to stop it. I'm curious
Mm.
what you would say to them in like not like a you're an idiot type of way, just like in a more encouraging way. So if you want
Yeah.
to tackle the what about
Yeah.
all the job loss question first.
Let's do the second first. So
Okay.
my response to people who think this can be fought or that we need regulations to slow it down, it is actually that I think the cat is actually out of the bag. And if that's true, then your brain cycles need to be spent adjusting to the new world rather than trying to prevent it from coming into existence. Like I don't think in practice, and in fact, the speed at which ChatGPT 4 came out makes me think you're not putting the genie back in the bottle here. Things are literally accelerating even faster than optimists have been talking about. Things are going even faster, and I think there are market pressures for this. I don't think the theoreticians' concerns are very good, and so the engineers might even be justified in kind of ignoring them and just building and going and doing. So I think I would say if you don't like that world, you're not going to like the digital world of the future because that's how it's going to look. And just adjust. It's all of this stuff. Humans are amazing in being able to adjust their software and their beliefs and cultural values. Much scarier, in my opinion, is like environmental disaster where there are microplastics in the water, and it's not like your belief system is going to change the fact that there are microplastics out there and they harm your body. But these risks I think are largely epistemic and they're cultural, and I think humans are going to be okay at fixing those. Okay, so that was my optimistic answer is like, it's coming, you need to adjust, and it's not the end of the world. What was the first part?
Oh yeah, the job loss question. What about all the
Jobless.
jobs
Yeah,
that are going to be lost?
that's harder. So part of me, part of me thinks, part of me is cold-hearted in that I think, if you are outcompeted by orders of magnitude by a machine, then your job should probably go away. So I wouldn't be surprised if more than 90% of coding jobs are gone I don't know, in a few years, as soon as this tech gets refined for that purpose, you're always going to have coders that are coming up with new models and doing more advanced things. But I think a ton of middle position jobs, even artistic jobs, they're going to go away. And I think, I would say the same thing about the washing machine. Like when the washing machine was invented, there were a lot of people that had made their livings based on washing other people's laundry. And, they had to adjust. And when you had the washing machine. So I think it's going to be the same thing here. You are going to have a lot of job displacement, but that's okay. That's how the world works. We adjust.
I mean, that's inevitable no matter what, with or without AI, right? Humans innovate. That's what we do.
That is the name of the game.
Exactly. Unless you want to go live off the grid, right? This is the reason why humans don't live in caves, is because we have learned to advance our quality of life. And the way you advance your quality of life is learning to do more with less. Every time you can do more with less, it usually means less labor. In the short term, the people who were doing that labor no longer don't have that labor to do, but they have to point their energies elsewhere. When you think about the transitional parts are always going to be hard. You're always going to have that. And I'm not at all unsympathetic with those individuals involved, but you can never view humanity in this aggregate like something that pause can be pressed on, because that'd be like telling someone, okay, if you're telling me no one should try to innovate, which means doing more with less, then you should never be allowed to try to hunt for a bargain or try to oil your door so it stops squeaking, because you could hire someone to come in and replace your door. And if you oil it, they don't have a job, right? Like that mode of thinking. And I was just looking, I just pulled this up. The number of jobs that currently exist, and I will put it this way, the number of creative, talented, interesting people who could be doing things that add value to our lives, but are doing things that add no value to our lives, is huge. Tax returns. There are over 500,000 tax accountants in the US. 500, and I've met accountants. They're usually pretty smart people. They're pretty sharp. They're usually pretty detail oriented. They're usually pretty good, like people of integrity that are pretty trustworthy. Like that's why you send them your taxes. The number of people doing something that literally just doesn't have to be done. It's so stupid. It's so it doesn't create any wealth. Nothing new is being generated from that. Our quality of life isn't better. It's just a way to not get punished by the government. If you can replace that, because it's such a thing that, to me, I'd eat low-hanging fruit for something like ChatGPT, all of the creative energies that are freed up. Now, the process, yes, the process is usually hard, but it's never like instant. It's never instant. There's always a period of, in the early phases, my guess is people who are experts at preparing taxes, they'll be the first ones, if they're smart, to learn how to be experts at using the AI to replace themselves, until eventually they're like, hey, I got good at using the AI and giving it the right prompts, and now it can do it. And now I can do 10 times as many as I used to, right? And you'll have like the industries themselves that are threatened will be the ones who learn it and usher it in and are like the best ones at using it in the early days until it's usable by everybody, stuff like that. So well, it's a real concern, but it's a concern regardless of AI. It's just part of humanity.
Yeah. I got like 5 things to say on that. One is, I think it is completely respectable to make the life choice to disconnect from all this. And I like the idea that we're going into a world and which people are going to be able to, let's say, connect to the internet to figure out the most efficient ways of doing homesteading. And they're going to go out and, I was tempted to do this myself. Still am at various times. I'm just saying, I'm not going to do much of the digital stuff anymore. I'm just going to live a more normal life. And I'm going to do more manual labor on my homestead, taking care of cows and chickens. That is a fine life path. That might even make you happy, healthier. And in making you healthier, it might make you happier. So, that might even be a better way to live as it is. I don't know. I'm not in a position to say, but I do think there's something beautiful about this idea that it is like the wealthy rural living or rural living where you're also connected to the internet to be able to get information that would have been seen as unbelievably valuable to our ancestors. Like there are videos on there about if you want to be a bushman and like figure out how to build the hut the best way or whatever, you can do that. And that might be the only thing you do is figure out how to live my off-grid lifestyle better. And that's like unbelievably valuable than if you were just to go right now into the forest and say, okay, with no information, just have a go. So I think that's going to be a new lifestyle that's emerging, which I'm pretty excited about. The other thing is when we're talking about job displacement, the costs, the reduction in cost is going to be so extraordinary. It's hard to actually envision how much more wealth we are going to have. Like I saw an example of somebody who was posting about this on Twitter. They said they had, might have been a bot, who knows. They said they were trying to get some code written, and they got a quote from a developer company, and they quoted them $5,000 to get this little thing done for their website. Threw it into ChatGPT, and like instantly they had something. I think it cost them 14 cents because you have to pay Google if your inputs and outputs are over a certain length. They had something that was, good enough to play with for 14 cents. 14 cents, $5,000. Instantly, I don't know how long it would take the company to do it. So that, yeah, okay, that means developers are going to be losing jobs. On the other hand, that means what would have taken $5,000 of resources to build can be done for almost nothing. And what
where does that company, from being on the side of running businesses, if all of a sudden you told me I can accomplish the same thing I was doing today and reduce my headcount and save $500,000, I'm not going to just say, cool, because I'm competing.
Right.
I'm not going to just say, great, I'll just pocket that $500,000. I'm going to say, okay, great, I've freed up headcount in this area. Now I'm going to deploy it. I got a list as long as my arm of things I would like to do if I had the resources. Now I'm going to try it. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to hire a video production team, or I'm going to go into this new market. I'm going to try to build a new product and innovate. You're going to deploy it in new areas, and you're going to spend that money on the next thing that currently was sitting on the side. So like there's always invisible unemployment locked up in current employment, right?
That's a great way of putting it.
500,000 tax attorneys employed. That means that invisibly there are at least that many people who would be employed but aren't, because people are using those resources elsewhere.
Right. And think about, people are often very sympathetic to starving artists. And they're like, oh man, maybe we should have UBI so we can get more creativity from the starving artists. Yeah, well, one way is UBI. Another way is you bring the costs of their production down 99%. And suddenly some random, schmo, some creative type is literally going to be able to make these masterful creative productions that are creating value for everybody. Even if it's just purely artistic, for pennies, it's not going to, their cost of living is going to go way, way, way down, because everybody's costs potentially could be going way, way, way down. So that's one take. The other thing I want to say is, I'm sure you can appreciate this, Isaac, right? You think about the empathy that we have towards people that lose their jobs. Part of the reason we have as much empathy as we do is because the school system is so bad that it has set people up to be inflexible in their jobs. So like this goes back more than a century. Educators have been trying to create factory workers. The culture of school is like, well, one way or another, we might actually need to make you into nice little bots so that you join the assembly line and can produce things, because that's what they thought needed to be done. Is you need to create human robots. Okay, in that system, and that view of the world that gets put into people's heads, they're going to have a very difficult time adjusting when you're getting paid to be a robot, and now a machine is actually going to take your job. You're like, I have nothing else to do. Well, what if in the next generation or the generation after that, the cultural expectation is that, no, what we do as humans is creative work. You don't actually need to be the mindless robot at the factory and whatever. You are valuable because you are creating information we can put into the machine as well. Like I think kids tend to be extremely creative and aren't built for the factory way of employment. So
have you ever noticed, Steve, that if you've been around a lot of homeschoolers, the proportion of homeschoolers who end up doing something artistic is so high compared to people who are like sort of traditionally schooled?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like humans, if they're left alone, that's the thing that they gravitate towards the most, right? Is like just being creative. You had a great Substack. It was like, okay, we had the age of the jock, which more or less means physical labor or anything physical wins. We had the age of the nerd, which is like the engineering and information age. And now it's the age of the creative, where like
Yeah.
imagination and the ability to think in concepts, you know?
Yeah. The ability to think in concepts and the ability to use some of the most impressive tools that humanity has ever created, you know, at your disposal. And yeah, I guess those two things that when I'm looking at, you know, job displacement, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, a lot of those jobs that could be replaced by robots are going to be. I don't think that that's like a disaster scenario we can't recover from. Like there are some people who are like, oh my gosh, if people don't have their factory job, there's nothing else they can do. I'm thinking, well, if that's true, it's because some part of their humanity has been taken from them, probably by school. Like, I don't think kids left to their own devices with these tools are going to be like, I can't do anything with my time. I can't create any value. It's like, of course you can. You just not trained.
Well, no one will pay me to pump gas anymore. I guess I'll just
I
park
guess
it
I'll end my
here and
life.
retire. Yeah,
Yeah, go
it's
to
over.
Canada and end my life. Okay, so I do have to go, but I want to end on this concept. Now, I'm pretty comfortable with everything that I've said so far being generally accurate. This is total speculation, but I think it's an interesting idea, and I have never articulated it before, so we'll see. There's something about this machine learning technology that really makes me think we might be hitting peak digital performance or peak digital technology. That is to say, what can be digitized is going to be turned into, let's say, information. We're going to have such powerful machines that anything that could be put into that machine is going to be sucked into that machine because it does it so much better than we can do it. And I almost feel like Peter Thiel's got this concept of the world of atoms and the world of bits. I feel like AI might be good enough where we master the world of bits so much that we actually peak, that this might be like the peak of this era. And sort of, if you think about it, there's some, it's like technologically possible what I'm talking about, because when you think of what the essence of digitization is, it's the breaking of states into ones and zeros, and then their complex rearrangement. We can do that really, really well. We could do it so well that now we have the ability to, break so much of what we do down into ones and zeros and put it into, this technology that is like, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times beyond our capacity to produce things manually, digitally. So I sort of have this feeling that we were coming up the information age, and then we had the digital age. And I think this technology, because of the way it works and the way that it can scale also, I think we might be hitting like peak digitization in the next 5 years. And what follows from that, I think it's more the real world, but I don't know. I just think that's a titillating concept.
That's a very, very interesting concept, because I know Mark Andreessen sort of popularized the idea, the phrase software is eating the world, and maybe dissolving is a better way of putting it, because as you said, it sort of breaks everything down. And you can see this industry by industry with, SaaS tools and all these things. More and more things get sort of software eaten. You go to a local guy to whatever, have him come and fix your plumbing, and you're like scheduling it online and paying him online, like little by little. There's still a lot, but is there a point which everything's been eaten by software now? Now everything has now been digitized to the greatest extent it can. And if so, I love that idea of the energy going back to the world of atoms, because this idea of the sort of the great stagnation, which I don't entirely agree with, but there's a lot to it in the realm of physical things. It's like, it is depressing. Like air travel is worse than it was 100 years ago. Like literally it's worse because it's more regulated and it's no faster. The planes aren't any better.
Think about how think about the story. What if the story is the reason there was stagnation is because humans saw a window to improve their information technologies a bazillion fold. So what looked like stagnation was actually the development of extraordinarily sophisticated information tools. Like what can humans do with extraordinary information tools? They could do a whole lot of things. So maybe
to your point, like the old thing that's used, like, oh, well, they built the Golden Gate Bridge in whatever 3 months or something, and these days it would take like 3 years and all this stuff. If all that energy was going to digital stuff for this time, and the result is, you can say, create me plans for a Golden Gate Bridge that meets the following
Bingo.
criteria, get all the material, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you can do it in 3 weeks now.
Totally. And wouldn't it be justified to have spent as much time and energy as humanity has spent mastering the digital world if we could say, okay, we've mastered it to such a high level and we've made it such that we're trying to put all kinds of inputs into this machine, and we've gotten so good at it that we can sort of say, okay, now what do we do with this? Well, there's the real world we can make better. There's all kinds of creative expression.
Oh my gosh. Now you're getting me excited because
you see it?
Yeah, Eugen von Bombalwerk, one of the worst names ever, Austrian economist, he describes the structure of production and the basically advancements, like we were talking about before. It's always when humans go deeper down the stack, like further removed from the end result in the structure of production, that's when wealth is created. So when you're like, oh, I learned to catch a fish with my hands. Oh, I learned it with a spear. Now I can get 3 a day. Oh, I learned to make a net. Oh, now I learned how to build a factory, to build rope, to build millions of nets.
Yeah.
Maybe information is the lowest you can go in the structure of production. It's the most foundational level of the stack is the information required itself before you even get to the raw materials that are needed or whatever. It's like, first you need information. You need to understand what is iron ore? How do I get it? Right? Like, and if you focus on turning that into something highly, highly scalable, digitizable, now think about what that does to every other layer of that.
It's that digitization concept that I think is maybe peaking here, because a bunch of autists and computer programmer types have thought that the entire world is fundamentally digital. All aspects of life are digital computational. And I think that's part of the motivating philosophy of a lot of the people who are pessimistic. It's like they can't imagine any part of life that isn't able to be put into this machine, and then thus they are replaced.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe that's just your autism, because there is a whole bunch of world that is not quantitative. It is qualitative, it is experiential, it is creative, and that's not going away. I see no plausible story here where that is somehow not valued or totally replaceable. It's not. It's just we're going to try to digitize everything we can so that we're like ultra productive with our information technology so that we can do other things.
Oh my gosh, I love it, Steve. It's like this digital age so far has been one giant struggle, doing things ourselves by hand until we could figure out how to create a program that just does all this information work for us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
great stuff, Steve. We could go on. We'll have to do a second episode maybe about some specific stuff as these new developments come forward. But are you taking any specific action right now that you're so excited by this? Are you like, okay, I got to learn more about this, I got to start using it? Like, are you acting on this?
No, I'm just waiting. This is happening a lot quicker than I was expecting. So I mean, as soon as the the movie products hit the market where you can start creating your own films from scratch without, like, I'm doing that. Like the day one that comes out, I'm doing that. And I'm going to be using it for research stuff. But no, I'm thinking like the next 6 months, the next year, I'm gonna watch all these amazing tools come out, and then I'm sure I'm going to be using it professionally more.
Well, I definitely encourage everybody, if you don't know Steve already, go check out his Substack. I think you just go Steve-Patterson. You probably find all your stuff on there. But what I wanted to have you on here because you always have interesting ideas, and I love talking to you. But you are the farthest thing from a hype man and like a Pollyanna-ish, like tech is awesome, tech, like Silicon Valley, crypto, all their hype and BS, and like, you're not that kind of dude. You're a skeptic. You're not the type to, like, you're not a pessimist, but you're not the type to just sort of blow smoke. And so hearing how you get excited about this, I'm like, yes, we need minds like Steve talking about this stuff in a realistic way, talking about the real dangers and the real possibilities, and not just the doomsdayers or the hype men. So,
well, I appreciate the opportunity, Isaac. I'm going to be, I'm in the middle of writing a few posts on this. I haven't, I just got my new studio set up, by the way. I got to do one shot here. Check out my cool new studio.
Look at that.
It's going to be part of the Natural Philosophy Institute. So I don't really see many voices that are saying the types of things that I'm saying. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to do this because I think we could be there's a super optimistic story we can tell. And I think right now I'm open to being wrong, but I think that's the most likely story. And sort of, if you're pessimistic on, humans' ability to adjust to new technology and you think they overreact, like this is exactly what you would expect when people were discovering electricity and all of its uses, and they said, oh, but we have cultures built around the songs that you sing when you do the laundry. And it's like, yeah, buddy, and that's going away, and it's okay. That's okay. So yeah, I hope I can build an optimistic picture here.
Awesome. Thanks so much for chatting, man. See you next time.
Thanks, Isaac.